Welcome to Strategies.
Oh, good morning.
How are you?
Good morning, Dave. I'm happy. I love that song.
Isn't it a
Just
wonderful
gave me
song?
goosebumps.
Good.
Oh, it is. It's one of my favorites, and it just kind of, when you get the goosebumps, something really resonates
Absolutely.
with you and who we are and what we're up to, and this is a big deal. So
It
I'm
is.
delighted to be on.
It is a big deal, and it's an important topic, but why do you call yourself a skeptic, Sandra?
I think throughout my life I've had a series of heartbreak, and it was, if I can't prove something myself, I doubted it was real. I believe what other people would say, what my parents would say, what I'd read on the internet or read in books is the truth, and that became my truth. And so when, for instance, one of the things I was interested in back in the day was hypnosis, and, somebody who's always held her weight, and I thought it's impossible, it's not real. I bought into the theory that it's not true. So as a skeptic, the only way I could really prove something's real is if I could experience it myself. So sure enough, I took a course in California, experienced it to be real, not what everybody thinks it may be about the stage shows and things. But,
no.
Yeah, I think it's human. I think it's human nature to just believe what we've been given and not question.
So what made you start researching life after death? What got you interested in this?
Fear. I have been someone, even since a little girl. I remember the first day of school, just scared. Like, what is life bringing? I didn't have the words for it back then, but I've grown up with a ton of fear about everything. And somewhere around 1996, my dad, it all came together. My dad had cancer and almost died. My grandfather died. I lost pets, coupled with the intense fear that I had of living life. And sometimes we look up at the stars and we start asking, what is it all about? Who am I? What is my life for? And there was a moment that all of a sudden I became afraid of dying. Who am I? What is my life for? Is there something beyond this life? And it was just this intense fear that had me start looking for proof for myself, not to share with anybody, but besides faith that I learned in church, is there any proof that we go on?
So even though you were, obviously you're saying you had some religious informing, you still were skeptical. You were, you say in the book, becoming a skeptic is easy. What do you mean?
Well, it's easy to, I don't even know the best way to put it into words. I can use a good example that hundreds of years ago, it was common belief, and people knew it to be true that the earth was flat.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was. And so we knew it to our core. We believed it. It's the way it is. And anyone that would say something other than that would be challenged, would be ridiculed, would go to jail, would be killed. Poor Galileo spent his last 2 years of his life under house arrest because he was adamant that the earth was round and that people used to also believe our earth was the center of the universe.
Right.
Not true.
Yeah.
And so it is easy to just fall into the trap, I say it's a trap, of just being human and believing this is all it is. So it's very easy to be a skeptic. And I say because I have a really big game, David, because like your show helps give people life. I believe if we can change the conversation, like the earth was flat to now the earth is round, to there's no such thing as life after death, to believing in life after death, we're actually giving people a better life. And that's the game I'm up to.
Well, and your book, and there's several others, if you look at the recent New York Times bestseller list, and I don't have the current one in front of me, but let me just throw out some titles. There's a doctor by the name of Eben Alexander. who wrote a book called Proof of Heaven. It's in the top 10, or has been. I don't know if it is as we speak today, but it has been. Heaven is real. The young man whose father is a minister, but who actually clinically died, and says he had an encounter with Jesus and the angels, and that's in the bestseller list. There's another book called Waking Up in Heaven that is by Crystal McVeigh, who that's in the bestseller list. Yours will probably get there too. My point, though, Sandra, is all of a sudden it seems like we are bringing this into the conversation, to the collective conversation. What's going on there?
There's several things. I think one of the biggest things we don't discuss too much is death and dying. And I certainly don't want to be known as the death girl or the grief girl, because, in my book, yes, I discuss my path of why I believe in life after death. There's a chapter in there to help people through grief. And then the rest of the book is how to live an empowered life as a human being while we're here. And I think, you know what, I just started talking and then I totally forgot your question.
Well, the question is,
being in the moment.
That's okay. The question is, all of these books, all of a sudden, the collective conversation that we're having. Yeah. And I don't remember a time where there are this many in the New York Times bestseller list of books with on this subject. So obviously we are bringing this into the collective conversation.
Now I know where I was going with all of that. There is a lot of pain currently on our planet. There is, between our loved ones who pass away, and 100 years ago, death was different. People would see people die at the farm, animals would die, they would see their loved ones pass away, they'd have the funerals and all of those things within the home, and death was more normal. Sure, it was painful, but it was more normal then than it is now. Right now, we don't see death. Our loved ones are in a hospital, nursing home, something happens. So there's a lot of pain, number one, from death. So people want to know, are our loved ones okay? Do I get to see them again? And as you and your listeners know, grief is probably the most painful thing we'll have to go through in our life. And then there's also a lot of misery, I think, as human beings. I had spoken to a heart surgeon, and he said he's done thousands of operations on people, and he'll have a conversation with them before they go under anesthesia, and he says they all experience the same thing. They all are expressing the regrets that they've had in life. They're all voicing their unspoken communications that they've had to people, and they want to express those in those last moments. And then they want to, they believe in God, even if they had claimed to be an atheist all their life. But suddenly they're looking for their faith. And so I think we're very busy these days. I mean, we have the internet, we're texting, we're on our cell phones. We're so busy with technology. We're so busy in our day-to-day activities in life. But push comes to shove in our final moments of life. All those regrets tell me that people aren't happy in their life. They're not going after their dreams and accomplishing them. They're not having the relationships that they want to have based on all the regrets and all the unsaid communication. So all of a sudden now people are faced with their own humanity. And so, like me, looking up at the stars thinking, is this all there is? There's people living in pain, and they might not be voicing it, but they're buying the book. What is there? Who am I? What is life all about? And there is something, the switch that happens in the brain to believe in life after death. It really helps people believe in life and that their life is for a purpose, and it helps empower people to live a better life.
We are really beginning to grapple with it. A recent guest here on the program said, and I loved what she said she was talking about grief and dying, and she said, all of us know that we're going to die on some level. She said, we just don't think it'll happen to us in our lifetime.
I know.
And I thought that is such a great quote, because we do things to, at least we have in the past, we do things to separate ourselves from this thing called death. Even the industry, the funeral industry, but what do we do? We, the highest compliment that you can pay someone in that industry is, he or she looks so natural. Well,
I know.
Like they just look like they're asleep. Well, but they're not asleep, and that, that goes to where we've been and what we're wrestling with, and we're wrestling with it today, folks. We're talking to Sandra Champlain, and the book is a good one. Sandra Champlain is the author, and you can find her. Well, you can find We Don't Die at your favorite bookseller. You can go online to Sandra. It's WeDon'tDie.com. Is that right?
Yes.
And you can order the book directly from there?
You sure can.
All right.
I can autograph that one.
And the book is published by Imbue Press, and I noticed that there's also a Habitat for Humanity logo on the back of the book. So some of the proceeds help the Habitat for Humanity?
Yeah, 10% of the proceeds go to Habitat for Humanity, and each house that is built by the publisher will be loaded with a library filled with books.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. So another reason, I mean, if you needed another reason to get this book, folks, well, there you go. You learn and you give at the same time. You can't get better than that, can you?
You can't.
So what about the evidence? Where did you find the evidence that we don't die?
From various sources, and I just want to get back to some of the books you mentioned at the beginning of the show. They're all great books, and I've read them all. And I wanted to also give the reader the gift of how to get through the painful experience of grief and how to live a powerful life. So there's so much more in it than just what's on the title. And maybe we can talk about grief for a few minutes towards
Absolutely.
the end.
Absolutely.
Because I know that helps heal families, some of the things I know. But my journey, and it was actually the death of my dad and the grief that I went through and what I found out about grief that told me I need to write a book on this because how much my words had helped people. So I was never going to share this because I used to think people that believed in life after death were lunatics. And I would go to bookstores, and I'd see all these spiritual sections, and I thought, these people should get a life. There's no proof of any of it.
So you wanted to believe. You wanted to believe, but
I did.
Yeah.
No, but that voice in my head was pretty strong that it's not true. So I was very secret about this. I didn't tell people about my journey at all, and not till 2010 when my dad died. And most of the good stuff I found out in 2005, 2006, 2007. So quite a while went by before I actually became courageous to spill the beans about everything I know. But one of the things that happened to me is I saw a medium do a stage show, and everything in my head was saying, you're here for entertainment, none of this is real. But she very explicitly would look at someone who had asked a question and talk about who their deceased loved one was, really specific. Not just, your grandmother's with you and she loves you. Very, very specific.
Yeah.
And so I went to this woman's website. Her name is Doreen Virtue, and she offered a course in mediumship. And she said at the end of 3 days, you'll be someone who can accurately tell the deceased people around others. So the skeptic inside me was saying, there's no way that's possible. But the girl that was afraid of dying thought, well, maybe there is something to this. And so secretly I went out and took a course with her, a weekend course in California. There were only 20 people in the room. And right away she said, we're not going to do a medium reading, but I just want to tell you how it's done. So we're going to do a mock medium reading right now. Everybody grab a partner. She says, I want you to hold hands, sit knee to knee, close your eyes, pretend that there is this invisible energy that's connecting you heart to heart. And she says, I literally want you to invent someone is standing behind your person. Just invent that in your imagination. And there's always a story, who the person is, what they died of, what they look like. And usually there's some message you're supposed to give the person you're working with.
Right.
Well, David, because she said we weren't really doing it, and we're going to use our imagination and make up a person, it gave me, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
I've got a very vivid imagination.
Your defensive walls came down.
Came down, no problem.
Yeah.
So I'm holding this woman's hand, my eyes are closed, and I invent a man standing behind her, just my imagination, looked just like that. He had blonde hair, windburned skin, big gap between his teeth. His name was Jan. I saw a fishing boat. I hear in my mind Denmark, and I'm telling her this. And I'm saying, I see a grandfather on your mom's side. And I'm explaining. His name is Jan. He's from Denmark. He was a fisherman, gap between his teeth, windburned skin, died of lung cancer. And this is a message you're supposed to give your mom. And out of my mouth came this message. And so I opened my eyes, and I said, okay, your turn. And she's crying. There's tears running down her cheeks. Her grandfather's name was Jan. He was a fisherman in Denmark. He died of lung cancer. And those words that came out of my own mouth were something that the mother had longed to hear while her father was alive.
Wow.
That, all of a sudden, opened my mind, and the skepticism went down a bit that, Sandra, there is more to life than meets the eye.
Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and so my book, We Don't Die, is not just about my journey of what I've believed. I've also pulled together some people that people don't realize even exist. We've all heard of Dr. Raymond Moody and near-death experiences.
Oh, I've interviewed him,
now,
yeah.
Isn't he wonderful?
He is a wonderful guy.
But now, just last week, there was an article in, I don't remember what, it was a big newspaper, that was talking about near-death experiences are really when the brain is shutting down, and it's just a normal part of dying that we see a white light and hear music, but near-death experiences aren't real. Well, yes, it's easy to believe that, or you could go one step further and actually research somebody like Raymond Moody and some of the examples. It's not just seeing the white light. Dr. Kenneth Ring is someone who took Dr. Raymond's studies and took it one step further. He actually documented blind people that had never seen in their life that had near-death experiences. And yes, there's the floating above their body, but these people had vision for the first time in that place that was just after death for those few minutes. They accurately could tell name tags on someone in the operating room or colors of a loved one sitting in a waiting room or a pin they were wearing. So that exists. And again, like the earth is flat, it's very easy for us to not even want to consider these things are possible, but they are. There is a woman that I've met who's a minister in a spiritualist church, and spiritualism dates back hundreds of years, and the woman is the minister, and she's also a medium. And she has a great website, thespiritart.com. She not only sees in her mind's eye your deceased loved one, but she's an artist. And she draws pictures of them.
Wow.
So throughout her website, and I even met her, she drew a picture of my dad, how he looked when he was back in the Air Force, when he was in his 20s. And she says, when we cross over, we can be whatever age we want to be. I thought, well, that's great. There is a doctor named Dr. Alan Botkin, who was a psychologist at the VA hospital.
He's been on the program. He's been on the program a couple of times.
Has he?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
We know his story, that he didn't even believe in life after death, and he would help people through post-traumatic stress disorder.
He was using using EMDR. It's an eye movement type of reprocessing.
Right.
that is for PTSD,
Exactly.
and he was working in the VA Med Center, I think in Chicago. Yeah.
Yes, and then him doing these eye movements and giving a little bit extra on the eye movements actually put people in a place where they could effectively tell and see and discuss the deceased people around others. And there's many, many more things. And I'm going to take a little sidestep over here because a lot of people think, oh, yeah, this is well and good, but it's not real. I, in We Don't Die, give people an experience that is so mind-blowing that it really has them question if they know who they really are. There's something called remote viewing.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned it from a physicist named Russell Targ, and this man is now in his 80s. He'd be a good one to interview, David. Anyways.
Actually, he's been on too.
Oh, well, then I need to listen to your show all the facts.
It's been years, but he's been on.
Yeah, he and this is, again, the skeptic in me, because what remote viewing is, it's a form of ESP,
yes,
extrasensory perception.
Yes.
In my mind, even though I've tapped into the life after death and seen dead people around others, I thought, well, no, ESP can't be real. And over the course of the weekend, he taught us all to quiet our minds, have the intention of seeing or knowing what's in a closed bag or what images are on a picture that's in a sealed envelope, or if you have a magazine that you've never opened before and you have a notepad, and just play, again, just like I was with the medium Doreen Virtue, if you were to know what pictures would be in there and use your imagination, take a notepad and start jotting down some of the images that come to mind. And so I teach people how to do that within the pages of We Don't Die, because what happens is people, okay, I'll play with it, I'll see. And they're in the privacy of their own home, and they're not telling anybody they're doing this. But all of a sudden, they write down 30 images that come to their mind when they have this magazine in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they start flipping through the magazine, and lo and behold, the images that they first saw in their mind are in that magazine. The experience gives goosebumps, one. Two is our logical mind can't figure it out. Like, how is that possible? That can't be. But it is. And so suddenly to have an experience yourself, and I believe that we all have this medium capabilities, and maybe not as well trained as some of the mediums out in the world, but we can all tap into this place that we can know things about others, we can see the pictures in the magazine, we can communicate with our deceased loved ones, and it all happens in that place in the present moment when we can quiet the little inner chatter that's going on in our mind.
Absolutely.
That's also, David, some of the greatest minds in history, Henry Ford and Einstein and a bunch of the people, their greatest inventions would come from that place when their mind is quiet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So therein lies the key, the keys to the kingdom.
Absolutely. Number one, that we could spend 4 hours and not cover this book. So I want people to know we are just really touching the surface of what's in here, Sandra. So I want people to continue the conversation with you through your website, through your book. And by the way, we've been talking about people that we both know that that I've interviewed, and Dr. Bernie Siegel, right on the front of your book. He's been on the program I don't know how many times. He's almost a co-host. He's been on so much. He wrote on the front of your book that We Don't Die will allow you to truly understand creation and the nature of life. Perfection awaits us all when we leave our bodies and cross the bridge. And he actually wrote the foreword to your book, right?
Yes. Can I share a very special Bernie Siegel story with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
My dad, back in the early 80s, was diagnosed with cancer, and he had a big tumor, giant potato-sized shaped tumor in his abdomen, and he was given 3 months to live. We lived in Connecticut at the time, and that's where Bernie was, Dr. Bernie.
Mm-hmm.
My dad went to spend some time with Bernie, got involved with his ECAP, his exceptional cancer patients. And in several months, my dad's cancer disappeared.
Oh, wow.
Gone. Yes. And so for those who don't know, Dr. Bernie was one of the founding fathers in our mind over body visualization.
Yeah, mind-body medicine. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Dad would visualize the character from Pac-Man moving through his body.
Oh, wow.
All the cancer cells.
Yeah.
So my dad went to church every day, and you can imagine that we heard the name Jesus quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. But the name we heard even more than Jesus was Bernie Siegel. And Dad went on to raise thousands of dollars for Bernie's organization. Dad rode a bicycle cross-country 5 times, and all the money he gave to Dr. Bernie's organization. My dad went on to empower other people about what's possible living life and having the positive attitude and the power of prayer and the mind and body and miracles and all that. So Dad passed away in 2010. And when I realized, I had created a free audio, David, after Dad died called How to Survive Grief, and I posted it online. People can download it at wedon'tdie.com. But I posted it because what I found out about grief helped me through the grieving process, helped me through the pain, helped me understand relationships and back into life. And in a very short period of time, that audio went viral, and people all over the world heard it. I started receiving emails about how it saved relationships, how it eased pain, and then finally people would write that they understood grief, they understood they were in a deep state of depression because of grief, and they chose not to end their own lives. So I knew that I had a message that had to get into people's hands, and I knew having a book would be the access way. And so I also knew that I had to be courageous and for the first time share why I believe in life after death, because I'm no fool. I know what books are at the top of the New York Times bestseller list, and I also know that I have a title like those that potentially could change people's lives. And so when I met the publisher and I spoke with this gentleman, he said, Sandra, he loved the idea. Loved the idea. And he's also the man that first had founded Jack Canfield's Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Oh, wow.
Days with Maury. And he says this is one of those books to impact millions. But he says you need to have someone famous, prominent author, write your foreword into a quote for the front. And Dave, I was like, I don't know anybody famous. I don't. And so he says, I don't know why, but I keep hearing this name in my brain. He said, Bernie Siegel.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
And so it came flooding back, and I thought, I don't know this man, and is this a coincidence? Dad used to say
no such thing.
Coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I went to BernieSiegelMD.com, and there's a button that says Contact Bernie. And again, the girl filled with fear pressed the button. Dear Bernie, you don't know me, but maybe you remember my dad. And so not only did he say yes, he wrote the most beautiful foreword. And another little magical bit is that my cover designer, I gave her free will to design any cover she wanted because she's won 100 awards, do whatever you want. Well, about the same day, Bernie sends me that Perfection Awaits When We Leave Our Bodies and Cross the Bridge. She sent me the book cover, and of course on it is a picture of a bridge.
Absolutely.
And the white light.
Yep.
And coincidence? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
Meant to be.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
What is before we leave grief, Sandra, what is the most important things? And again, you can go to your website and people can download some very important tips for dealing with grief after the death of a loved one. But this may be an unfair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What's the most important thing for us to grasp, hold on to when we're grieving, when we're in the throes of grief?
Oh, boy. The most important thing, and the best way I can say it, is when you're grieving, it is out of your control. The brain goes through a process of getting adjusted to a new reality. We don't have a choice. If you could imagine a drug addict or an alcoholic that is addicted to their substance, when we love, and this is, I know, a basic, crude way of saying this, but when we love someone, there is actually a chemical addiction that goes through us, and we're addicted to that person. And grief isn't just when someone dies. It's when you lose a job, you go through a divorce,
Yes.
any of that.
Any loss.
And so any loss at all. And so grief is automatic. Our brain, our body, our chemistry, our chemicals in us have to get readjusted to the new reality without that person, without that substance. So grief, we have to go through this withdrawal process. And when we grieve, yeah, the pain is there. It's horrible. We can get incredibly depressed. We have thoughts of guilt. We replay the same messages in our mind over and over and over. We don't have enough of these healthy chemicals that we need on a daily basis. So there's anger, there's arguments, there's fight. And the most important thing is when we can understand grief and understand that it's an automatic thing, we can't choose to not go through it and say, oh, I should be over it by now. The body needs to readjust to this new reality. And when you can understand grief, understand the impact that it has on your relationship, because when you're angry, who do you take it out on? The people closest to you. It distorts our perception, our memory, conversations we have. We are thinking they're happening one way. We're storing them the other way. It's a mess. So to understand the world of grief, to have compassion for yourself and for anyone that's grieving, and know that it takes time. There's some tools to lessen the pain, to ease the pain. Yes, believe in life after death. Your loved ones, you will see them again. But to get through it as opposed to getting stopped by it. A lot of people die internally themselves when they have a loved one die.
Yes.
But when you understand grief and you understand the different aspects of it, to not only go through it, but then to also be able to embrace your own life and ask yourself, who am I? What is my life for? And to have a life worth living.
You say in the book that heaven is much closer than you think. Where is heaven, Sandra? Do you know?
It's right at the tip of your nose, David. And I smile saying this. We are made up of energy.
I can hear your smile on the radio.
Oh, it is. Because it's fun, it's funny, but I believe it's real. Then this little scientific terms, but if we're all made up of molecules, and inside the molecules are atoms. If you put a camera inside one of our atoms, you wouldn't see anything. There'd just be empty space. It'd just be vibrations of energy. So we're all made up of energy. We've heard this before. It's not hocus pocus. It's the real deal. Everything you see is energy. Also is energy are things like our GPS signals, radio signals, the wireless internet that's surrounding so many of our homes and where we are. We don't need a cord to be connected right now, David.
Right.
And meanwhile, my voice and your voice is going out to ears all over this planet. Well, how is that possible? It's because of this energy that is invisible to our eyes, but it's real. So heaven, like, how do I say this? If a piece of wood burns, the energy just changes from the actual wood to the heat, and it may disappear, but now it's a different form. It's heat that is released. When our body dies, our energy, us, our soul, if you want to call it that, our personalities, who we really are, it's no longer visible. It's no longer something we can touch. But I say heaven is right here, vibrating at the same place as our wireless internet signals that we can't see, radio waves, sound waves. It's right here. So the term hereafter, I believe it's accurate. And I believe that when I could quiet my mind, or your listeners, you or your listeners can quiet their mind, it is in that space that we can connect with what is right here.
You've got some wonderful quotes in the book that you use. May I share one of them with our listeners? It's a Sioux Indian story, and it's called Creation. And it goes like this. The Creator gathered all of creation and said, I want to hide something from the humans until they are ready for it. It is the realization that they create their own reality. The eagle said, give it to me. I'll take it to the moon. The Creator said, no, one day they will go there and find it. The salmon said, I will bury it on the bottom of the ocean. No, they will go there too. The buffalo said, I will bury it on the Great Plains. The Creator said, they will cut into the skin of the earth and find it even there. Grandmother Mole, who lives in the breast of Mother Earth and who has no physical eyes, but sees with spiritual eyes, said, put it inside of them. And the Creator said, it is done.
It's one of my favorites.
It's beautiful. And the book is full of little tidbits like that all along the way to kind of keep us going. One of the things that I like towards the end of the book that you do are some habits, some daily habits to supercharge. You call it supercharging your life. And so the book this is not a book about, even though the title says We Don't Die, and it's a skeptic's discovery of life after death, this is not a book about death, Sandra. It strikes me that this is a book about living.
Yeah, somebody once called it a handbook for being human. And I love that. And I know when each one of us was a kid and every dream was possible, it was a great place to live. And then the older we get shut down, and our dreams are somehow forgotten, and we get busy in life. And We Don't Die restores people to that place as a kid again. Doesn't matter what age you are. Who are you? What's your life for? What are your dreams? How to get through some of the fears that have stopped you? Because we all know that when you have a new action, you do something new, you have a new result, you can often have a lot of fun. And so to get myself and others, you said before we got onto the show that you created your radio show for you, and it helps you. And a gift it is for your listeners as well. I created We Don't Die for me, and hoping that there'll be some other people like me that want to hear. But when we can move through our fear and get back in touch with what we love, and that's where the real juicy parts in the life get. It's fun, relationships work. Our biggest fears of human beings is the fear of dying, the fear of failing, and it's the fear of being alone.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. We don't die. We're never alone. Even though we can't see our loved ones, they're still around supporting us, and we can never really fail. Life is an education for the soul. The only way you're going to have a new result is to try a new action. And on the other side of that fear, wow, there could be so much happiness and fulfillment. And that's where I'm living right now.
That's where we put the exclamation point today, because even though I'd love to continue this conversation, we've got to close out, Sandra. But I want people to continue the conversation with you through this book and through your website. The book is We Don't Die, and it's a skeptic's discovery of life after death, out from Imbue Press, at your favorite bookseller, or WeDon'tDie.com. Sandra Champlain, thank you so much for being you, for sharing with us, and for coming to Strategies for Living today.